Dr. Jazz.
Cool, but I'll just jump in, Donny. I mean, like, obviously you have a new record out, and it's you're gonna promote it. I saw your touring schedule. You're like Europe and the States and Europe and Israel and everywhere. And I think I have all of your CDs, like starting with Lan Xang way earlier. And I just wanted to ask you, like, for I Want More, how did you? Obviously this group is as tight as it can be, but like, how did you decide where to go on this record, that it's kind of like a evolution for you? Because when I listened, something happened musically with you in 2012 or 11, and I want to hear from you, like, how did you envision your musical pursuit, like, from then?
Well, I think for this particular record, the music was all conceived during lockdown.
Oh yeah,
and
really? Okay.
during its period in the United States, where there was no live performance happening really, and there also wasn't a sense of when it would come back.
Mm.
So for me, I had this sense of, if I was going to do one thing, what would that be? If I only have one thing, there's only one concert that I'll ever do, what will it be? And that was the impetus for this record. Yeah, and it does, I've been on this journey for a long time, and I keep pushing to discover new things and get outside the comfort zone, to be as fast as I can with things, and it's just sort of led to this, where this music is right now. And so I think it continues to evolve, and with this record, it was also the way we recorded it was, well, and even the conception of it, there's a lot of freedom for everybody in the band.
Yeah.
And part of it is just basically have all this history here, on the bandstand and the recording studio and these life experiences. So I think I draw from that, and some of the songs they're more collaborations now. Yeah. A few of the songs on this record, like "Fly My Spaceship," the impetus of that was Tim. At a sound check, I was recording, we were jamming. He played the bass line, and then I wrote the song and the bridge, and then when Jason was recording, he added some harmony. So in the end, it was really, like a collaborative songwriting process.
Yeah.
Another one that is I'm just sorry, I'm just having a moment, or I'm forgetting things, but there's another one. Oh yeah, of course, Lansdowne.
Okay.
Was another one where Tim sent me a file of and then that just led to, I took it to some different places and whatnot, but so there's more of a collaborative thing happening songwriting wise, which is really exciting to me. And then David Friedman, having him heavily involved is also feel like a game changer, in some ways. Just he has a very distinctive sonic, aesthetic, and it feels like it really connects with what we do in a way that feels really organic, actually. The way we interact around the music feels really cohesive and exciting. It's the first time that he ever worked on jazz record.
Yes, yeah.
I know this is not obviously a typical jazz record, but you know what I mean. I mean, and all of that is really really exciting because he's somebody who is down to take risks and is definitely not trying to water things down. Wonderful partner to have in this process.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, man. It's like you know, the production is just like, yeah, sick.
Thanks. He's amazing, man.
But also the tunes. You know, I listened to this one tune, Turbo. I think like a bunch of times. Like, how do you usually? I mean, you know, when I listen to your music, I did like. I wrote charts for some of your tunes like years already, like Trinity Place, I think, and like
oh wow,
Mountain Mama, like all the early stuff. You know, I love that stuff. That's really early stuff.
That's really early.
Yeah. Probably it's all wrong, you know. Like, but anyway, you know, I love writing lead sheets. But like, how do you come up with something like Turbo? I mean, what's the story like when you write like?
Yeah, well, I think Turbo was just that sense of like. You know, that's where, you know, just that head banging, like energy.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of it. It was just that clave, you know, and then it was the saxes having this sustained melody. There's with a lead and a harmony voice. And having those slowly interact as the harmony beneath it changes, but also as they change. Yeah. So on the final version, you know, you hear me playing the sax lead, and there's another. It sounds like a different instrument playing a harmony voice. It's a saxophone, but Dave treated it in such a way that it sounds, you know, like something else. And so really that was the energy of the tune. And I remember just working on the harmonic movement. You know, it starts in D, and so where can I go that feels good? You know, I for me, writing is often an instinctual thing. I'm not necessarily thinking, okay, I'm in D. What if I go to the relative this or the relative that or up? You know, I'm not thinking of it that way so much as I'm playing at the keyboard usually and just kind of seeing what feels right. You know, so I tried a bunch of different, I think, sort of harmonic sequences. Again, harmonic meaning the bass note and as it interacted with the lead harmony and whatnot. So anyway, this form started taking shape, and at a certain point it felt like, okay, it's just tension, you know, it's tensing and tensing and tensing, and it's more and more tension, and it needs to release. And so that chorus section that you hear at the end of the form, that's in my eye the release point. But that can't, you know, when it goes to G. That's
a beautiful melody. Yeah.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So and that, but you know, that didn't come right at the beginning.
Okay.
You know, that was long in the process. You know, I think some songs just unfold really quickly. Turbo wasn't one of those. It was work, you know, coming back to it and stuff. And then finally feeling like that form was in place and then having the chorus. And then once that was in place, it was adding those things like that piano arpeggio, you know, just things like that. Like, how do I make this feel more human and not just me in front of the computer on Sibelius, et cetera, et cetera. So it was all, all were added over time.
How does this work then with the drums when you have a lead sheet? I mean, do you tell Mark what to play, or just like you give him a lead sheet? And I mean, he's a monster, of course, but
I mostly will say nothing, or I'll give like a brushstroke to Mark or Nate, you know, or Zach Danziger or Jonathan Blake or other drummers I play with. I keep it I keep it simple. I don't write out a drum groove,
Sure.
mostly because I don't know how to do that. And I mean, you know, I guess I always feel like I'm really interested to see what they'll do because I think it might be more interesting than what I might do. Occasionally, like there's a tune of mine called Hysteria that came out as a single
Yeah.
in the lead up to I Want More. Like that one, I kind of programmed something that was kind of specific. And I remember Mark saying that he mostly, you know, played based off that idea, but you know, that's an anomaly for me. Most of the time, it's just, you know, the lead sheet is like the bass, chords,
Yeah.
you know, chord voicing and the melody, or just the melody and counter melody in the bass, you know. And again, it's just like trying to, you know, I know these guys and of course have so much trust and respect for their creative imagination. I love to see what they do with things. And so I want it to feel like they can bring their full creative imagination to the fore when we're learning material and recording and
Yeah. I mean, if you have musicians like that, it's a shame to say anything. Actually, it's just you know. When is the first time you played with Mark? Actually, with Guiliana?
It was a long time ago. It was at Smalls.
Really?
And it was an Omar Avital gig.
Really?
And it was Omar Avital's band. It was Anat Cohen was playing clarinet. Jason was on synth, myself, and Mark. And I don't know if there was another musician. I don't quite remember. But that was the first time we played together. I had met him when he was on the road with Avishai Cohen, and I was on the road with Dave Douglas's quintet.
Oh, yeah.
I remember going out once, like maybe not Estonia. It wasn't Estonia. It might have been. It was a Balkan state or something. Anyway, so I had gotten to know him a bit before we played, and then that was the first time we mixed it up on the bandstand.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, because basically it's like a working band, right? You have now almost for 11 or 12 years.
It is. I mean, Mark doesn't do a lot of the touring now because he's, you know, busy with his own band and doing St. Vincent. So it's more Nate Wood on drums or Zach Danziger, who are both amazing. So I feel really fortunate, you know, to be able to play with these different folks and yeah.
What I wanted to ask you also that, like, when did you start writing music? You know, because like, what's your story with composing? I mean, obviously you played with so many great composers as well, but like you as a composer, when does your story begin?
Man, it was just thinking back. I had a band when I was a teenager. I was in high school. My father had a band that I played with, but also at the venue that he most often played, I was able to get gigs for my own group there. That was really a cooperative band. It was myself and Kenny Wallison.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Great drummer.
Sure.
Yeah, it was Kenny Wallison and Kenny Carr, who played guitar with Ray Charles for years. Brian Hendrickson, keyboard player in the Bay Area, and Anders Swanson was playing bass for a while. We had different people. Anders lives in LA and is a professional musician down there. So we play a combination of jazz tunes, like jazz songs, and then we play some like Jeff Lorber. We play some Brecker Brothers. You know, we would play some Police covers. We play some R&B kind of stuff. But I remember trying to write a couple songs at that point because Kenny Carr was writing songs all the time. I wrote a couple things, and I think they failed pretty miserably. You know, I did what I was doing. Then I was at Berkeley College of Music, and I wrote a couple things. You know, I had like a senior recital and probably another recital too. And I remember writing some original songs for those moments, and they were. It's hard to look back with any sense of objectivity, but I'm not going to say. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to leave that alone. But I'll just say that's when I first sort of started writing songs out of warm, and then I started doing some gigs around Boston as a band leader, And then I was touring in Gary Burton's band, and I eventually moved to New York City, and then had been writing on and off, ever since. I mean, I think in a perfect world, I would be, writing every day. It hasn't always happened that way for me. I'll go through spurts of writing a lot,
Yeah.
But anyway, I really, Samo, I really just learned from playing and observing what other people did. Unfortunately, I never took a composition class or never studied
Oh,
that.
really?
I was
Oh,
so
wow,
focused
man.
when I was at Berkeley. Yeah, when I was at Berkeley, I was just so utterly focused on playing the saxophone and performance, and then I didn't go to any grad school or anything like that. So for me, it's just been observing and asking questions and learning on the way.
Mm.
And I think my writing has improved over
Oh,
the years. Improved,
yeah,
and some of that is experiential. Just the experience, and also just growing.
sure. Yeah. Did you ever talk about, you played with like amazing composers like, Gary Burton, Maria Schneider, and Dave Douglas.
Yeah.
I can name all these players, but did you ever talk about composition or ask them, like Maria, how does she compose a composition? Or
I'm thinking about that. I mean, with Maria, I've definitely inquired about her process,
okay.
and then sometimes it's related to something that I'm involved in, like I'm improvising on or something, and I'll ask her, or she'll share, the impetus behind it. Um, and then I just over the course of the many years of working with her, I've just observed her process, and sometimes I've asked her for feedback on
Okay.
my songs.
Oh, really? Oh,
I'll
wow.
be
Okay.
working on something. We'll be on an airplane. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Or do you have really interesting to hear her feedback and how she hears things. Um, so I've really enjoyed
That's important.
that dialogue with her. Um, yeah.
How does your story with Maria begin, actually? I mean, I wanted to ask you that later, but like, you like every solo that you have on her tunes, it's perfect. It's as if it's composed. You seem, of course, it's obviously not. It's improvised, but like, when does your story with her begin? I mean, how did you guys meet?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. When she used to have she for many years played every Monday night at Vigiones when
Oh,
that
yeah.
club was open in the West Village, and so I moved to New York maybe in 1990.
Already, okay.
I started subbing on her band. Rick Margitza
Oh, yeah.
first called me to sub on her band. Like I can't tell you exactly, Samo, when that was. I'm going to guess it was 1992 or something.
Okay.
Um,
It's
so I
also early.
started
Okay.
subbing, and when I was in New York, and I used to Monday night was my basketball night. It was a group of mostly musicians who got together to play hoops. So a lot of times, I can't remember exactly when the Maria gig started. It was maybe 9:30 p.m. But I would go to the basketball, thing, and I would play, and then I would be watching the clock, and then okay, time for me to leave, and I would take a cab down. The basketball game was up in Chelsea, and so I would take the cab, it'd be 10-minute cab ride down to Vigilias, and I would walk in. I'd sometimes put a knit hat on. I was like be sweating,
That's cool, man.
it's like a long. So walk in and just 10 minutes before the gig or whatever, and get up there and play. And so anyway, I subbed a while. I got to know Rich Perry, and he would call me to sub, and
Yeah.
and I guess eventually that gig ended. She stopped doing it, and the club. I don't know if that was the same time the club closed down. I don't remember the chronology of events, but anyway, it was the time when she got commissioned by Jazz at Lincoln Center to
Okay.
write a piece, which was the Bullary Solias and Roombas, and that was when I joined the band on a
Okay.
permanent basis. And so there had been a period of time, there had been a gap. I've been subbing on and off and doing some rehearsals and the Vigiones gig, and then that gig ended, and I didn't really play band, and then suddenly, I was invited to join, and that was some point in the 1990s. I don't remember when.
Oh, really? So early? Okay, I thought it was later. Well, okay.
It
Yeah,
could have been. Maybe
no,
it
no,
was
no.
later,
I
actually.
don't know. I don't know. I'm
I don't
following.
know. Whenever the record, you know what it is? It's Concert in the Garden.
Yeah,
When
sure.
that record came out, that was when I joined the band.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that's a beautiful one. Yeah. The, I wanted to ask you, Donny, also, like you said you didn't focus on composition, but on saxophone playing. And when I think of you, like you, especially nowadays, it's like your generation of players. Let's say Mark Turner and Chris Potter. He's a little bit younger than you, but Chris Cheek. All of you guys like have so recognizable voices. And what was your study process there? Like, I hear you play like two intervals and it's like, yeah, that's Donny. Or like, even if I go 20 years back, like, what was your story when learning to developing your language? I mean, obviously there were influences and stuff, but like still.
I guess, one thing that comes to mind is that I would, when something came up that was interesting and exciting to me aesthetically, I would pursue it. I would pursue it, and oops, sorry, my AirPod just fell out. Sorry about that. So an example would be when I was at Berkeley and I started playing, like practicing wider intervals, and I really loved the sound of it, and it's all reminded me of Monk, who I love. I love the distinctive individuality of his playing, as everybody does. He's just, what an individual. And I think that was inspiring to me. And so I was working on it. And I remember somebody once saying to me, like, "Oh yeah, I hear you going for that intervalic thing." And and I just thought, well, I'm going to stick with it because to me it's really interesting and exciting. And I don't hear a lot of people doing it.
Yeah.
It's not like a typical thing that you hear somebody doing, at least in my time, when I was 20 years old. So it's that spirit that I think I've always tried to just follow what felt exciting to me, and also been cognizant of not wanting to sound like everybody else. Not that that's a thing, but or maybe another way to put that is cognizant of like trying to find my own. What is my voice? What is that? How do I find that? Well, the key for me is listening to my instinct and letting that go and not being afraid to follow that, even if it leads way out of what I might have expected it to lead, where it would lead. Another example for me is I got really into folkloric music at one point and was playing in a band where all the music was based on Argentinian folk rhythms. And
oh yeah, with Guillermo Klein? No, you weren't.
No, I was not in Guillermo. I played in Guillermo's band once or twice, but I was playing with Fernando Torres.
Oh yeah, sure. Oh man, yeah,
the guitar player.
Yeah,
composer. And so there was a lot of chacarera and zamba, and and that reminded me of when I played in a salsa band as a teenager in Santa Cruz growing up, and this love I have of Afro-Cuban music, and so I really just spent a lot of time. That just took me on a pathway of years of just studying African folk rhythms and how they've spread and how it's spread to, of course, Cuba and Peru and Panama, because I've spent a lot of time playing with Danilo Perez and kind of studying with him, learning from him. He's a good master in music, and Brazil. So all these different sort of folkloric traditions, and I'm not an expert on any of them, but for a while it was really meaningful to me to really work on it and inhabit it and find a way of expressing that having it become part of my musical language. So
Yeah.
records like Soar and In
Yeah,
Pursuit,
yeah, exactly.
of mine were really heavily in. That was the period where I was really heavily influenced by that music. Um, so that was part of me trying to find my language. But in a way, it's like
Mm.
it's following your heart, following what you love and where your passion leads you.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
Yeah, no, it's funny you say like those records. I mean, I already when I listen to Lan Xang, it's like your sound is so much there already. And even though
oh,
you're like
thanks,
really young, then I mean, like you're not even 30, I
thanks.
think, on those records. Like it's
Well,
incredible.
also, I mean, David Binney, he was
Yeah.
such a great influence on me and my career. He produced a lot of my records,
When did you
and of
first
course
meet
was
Dave? Actually,
it
how's
was
the story with
I
Dave? I mean,
first met him. Well, I met him through Ben Porowski because Ben and I
oh,
were good friends in college, and when I first moved to New York, Lost Tribe was really
sure.
um, on the ascent. So I would go hear them play, and Ben or Adam Rogers,
Yeah,
who I'd met through Ben, introduced me to Dave, and we just hit it off right away. Fellow saxophone players, but also native Californians, and had a lot of shared interests. And he was really encouraging to me
mm,
to about my playing and my writing, and we used to get together and play like multiple times a week.
really. Oh
Um,
wow.
Scott, he lived right next to Scott Colley in that period, and Jeff Hirschfield, was close by, so the four of us would play a lot, and that was the Lan Xang,
Oh wow. Okay.
um, and just all these different iterations of that community of people. Kenny Wallison eventually joined the band, but I guess the point is we were workshopping music a lot. Jeff had a space. Now I'm now remembering downtown, and yeah, we just used to workshop music, and that was I learned a lot. We're talking about composition, like observing David Binney's compositional style, up close,
Yeah.
day in and day out, and his musical language is very exciting to me. And then he was also very affirming to me about, as I said earlier, about what I was writing. He'd be, yeah, man, it sounds great. And he's very much of like an iconoclast, viewpoint, and that I shared too. And so it was affirming to have his, support and
Mm,
wisdom, and feedback when we were doing all that.
yeah. I love those records you guys did. Like, I mean, that period, South and earlier, those like dual
Yeah,
saxophones lines going, like I love that stuff. What he
yeah.
wrote, and your connection. You had such a strong connection. I mean, musically, it's amazing, really beautiful.
Thanks.
Uh, but
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you. You mentioned New York. Like when you came to New York, like what you said, 91, right, or 92. Uh, how,
90 or it was 90 or 91. Yeah.
how was that like for you? I mean, obviously you played with Gary already, but like coming to New York with tons of amazing horn players and entering the scene, like
Hmm.
what was the initial contact for you? I mean, like, or
Well, it was initially pretty overwhelming.
yeah,
You know, just yeah, it's just overwhelming because I come from a small town in California, and I'd spent at that point maybe 5.5 years in Boston, but still Boston
yeah,
is nothing like New York. Um, so it was overwhelming, and I think I remember that just how will I ever get a gig? There's just so many great players, and that thing where you go out, I would go out and go to one club and hear, you know, all just Walt Weiskopf,
yeah,
then go to another club and it's Josh Redman, another club it's Mark Petrie, just all these just fabulous, fabulous players, and you're just thinking, oh man, they do that so well. I should work on that, or oh no, I wish I sounded like that, or just having just processing all the information
yeah,
was pretty intense for me initially. It was hard, I would say, but but I just hung in there, and and eventually made my way.
Yeah. What was the gig you got with Steps Ahead important for you, like as a sidestep when I look back? I mean,
so I think so, yeah, because I maybe I'd been in New York for a year or two at that point, and I really loved that band, and I loved Michael Brecker in general, but loved him in that band.
yeah,
And it just felt like some of those songs and some of his solos in those songs were just utterly iconic. So to suddenly be in that band and be playing those same songs, it was a great opportunity because I had to find a way to play that felt authentic to the material and also authentic to who I was as an improviser, So, just to be literal about the obvious, I wasn't going to go up there and just try to be Michael Brecker, who I could never be, but I had to find my way through that music, but doing it in a way that felt strong and individual.
Yeah.
So it was a great learning experience, to have that opportunity night after night.
Yeah. Did you ever talk with Mike about it? Like,
I never did. I mean, I met him just a handful of times, and our interactions were usually pretty brief, so I never really got to talk to him about that specific thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a sweet person, a really sweet person, and an incredible player.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, after all this experience, like playing with all these guys, like how did Exile and Discover happen? And like that Scene from Above, those records, I love the writing again on those records, but like those bands, obviously the connection with Scott Colley and Jim Black and Monder, that's kind of like makes sense to me. But like the previous one, Exile and Discover, it's kind of I mean, how did those records happen? You becoming a band leader and releasing your first album?
Well, Exile and Discovery happened through David Baker, who the engineer and producer, and who sadly passed away years ago. But the label Naxos, the A&R guy was Mike Knock, and I think they had a relationship. Yeah, they had a relationship, and I think Dave recommended me to Mike, and it was under the guy, where Dave would set up the session and do the recording, and there was a concept, that they wanted, which was to have it be some, standards, not only standards, but primarily standards. And I think, the choice of band, I don't quite remember how that went down, to be honest with you. It was so long ago, but I know I'm sure it was between David and I talking about it. And I'd played with Ugana, and I played some with Bruce. I don't know if I'd played with Billy Drummond before that record. So anyway, it was put together, and we had one rehearsal the night before, and that was it. I did those Piazzolla solo pieces because those are things I had been working on, because this was during the period where I was playing in Fernando's band, and those etudes had been meaningful for me. I've been really enjoying playing that. I forgot to say that I actually was really first exposed to tango music when I was playing in Gary Burton's band, because he had done a record with Astor Piazzolla that was that I loved, and he was raving about the music, and so at that point I started listening to tango music. Anyway, so Dave set up the session, and it was again primarily standards, but chose tunes that I felt connected with, and then a handful of originals and those solo pieces. Then the next opportunity as a leader came with Arabesque, and that I had, much more freedom to choose who I wanted to play with and what I wanted to do. And so then hence mostly originals and asking Scott, who I knew and I'd been playing with a Lan Xang, Maunder, who I'd been sessioning with a lot, and Jim Black, who I knew from college.
Okay.
So that's how that came together.
Yeah, that record is really like your record already for me. Like,
oh, thanks.
Like it's really like, damn, the tunes that what's the first one? Mandresa, I think, like that.
Manresa, yeah.
Man, whew, I love that.
Oh, thank you.
That's beautiful, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
How did you feel as a band leader in the beginning? Was it comfortable for you leading bands? Like,
No. In fact, talking about that record, one of the things that I remember is how unsettled I felt.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, just insecure, maybe is another way to put it. Just didn't feel like I was grounded.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I put so much time into writing those songs, and I just remember when we were recording it, I don't think I really ever had the sense that I really played to the level that I wanted to play at. It was like disappointing to me. Yeah. Exile and Discovery, on the other hand, I remember feeling, there's so much common ground with those standards.
Yeah.
Samo,
sure. Yeah.
I felt like a lot of adrenaline that day, and it just felt like it flowed so naturally, and I was really happy with how it went down. But then, when as I, describing now, it was hard. Seen from above, felt like I just really struggled and whatnot. Yeah. And it just took me, becoming, band leader is, well, as it's there's a lot that goes into it. And, I'm much more at ease and at peace with it now. And I'm very clear now about what's going on. But for me, back then, it feels like lifetimes ago, I was a different person,
it's 20 years. Yeah.
And
more.
Yeah.
Was there a moment like in your career as a band leader that you felt like, okay, shit, I'm getting more? When was that moment? If there, I mean, obviously there was, you said, like, what, do you know maybe when that happened? Or?
Hard to say. I mean, I remember feeling really focused when I was doing the Soar and the In Pursuit projects, because the concept of that In Pursuit especially was so thanks. The concept of that record was really clear in my mind and all of that. And then when I got into making the electric records, actually, I'm forgetting Recommended Tools. That also felt really, the trio thing, that felt really, really good. I think I'm not sure if I had a specific moment, but more that it's been like a journey, and whatever I've had to go through in my life to survive to get to these points, some of those things come up along the way as you deal with being a band leader. So the more that I've come to terms with, the traumas that I had as a child, and work through that or continue to work through that, that's also impacted how I've been able to handle all the responsibilities that go with band leading, if that makes sense. So
sure.
I mean, there's times where it's been very clear, like I mentioned, In Pursuit, Recommended Tools, Declaration too, although that's something I really toured with because so many people. But once it really settled in with Jason, Mark, and Tim,
Casting for Gravity,
Casting for Gravity, that felt like a new chapter.
Yeah. I remember that when that record came out, and all of my, fellow musicians, drummers, or students, they were like, "Man, this is the shit." I was like, Yeah,
Oh, thanks, man.
that's a new step there. That
Thank
really
you.
was really like, damn, okay, you're going from the acoustic into this, you know, whatever this is, you know. I don't know.
And I think, now with I Want More, it's part of the evolution for this record, and it
Yeah,
happened on Below too, but it's just the saxophone sonically is in a different space now. It's just there's so much more
yeah,
treatment of the saxophone as lead voice. There's so many more effects, and how that interacts with the other effects is to me a big part of the progression of it, and just of how the music has evolved.
yeah, yeah. Are you otherwise still interested in the acoustic part also of your composition and playing? I mean, obviously you've been doing the electric thing now for a long time, but like, do you still want to explore that
Yeah, I
area?
mean,
Or
I do. About once a year, I play a week at the Village Vanguard, and the last couple times I've done it, I do an acoustic project,
oh wow,
and
okay,
it's with Gregoire Marais on harmonica,
wow,
and John Blake on drums, and Scott on bass, or Desron Douglas on bass. Julian Lage did one of the weeks. Ben Monder did
mm,
one of the weeks. So that's something I have specific music that I wrote for that. That really is an acoustic project. So I still do it, and I still enjoy it. Yeah.
yeah. No, I love your acoustic moments always. You know, it's such a
Thank you.
nice part. Donny, I just wanted to ask you that, not to take too much of your time, but like you mentioned Gary Burton before, and you being a band leader, and you toured with Gary when you were like 20 something. Like, how was he
Yeah.
to you younger guys? And you know, what are some of the lessons that you learned from him being a band leader? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, he knew so much about the music business.
oh, that's
And
awesome.
in fact, he had written a book about being on the road. Um, and so being on tour with him was like he was the embodiment of that book. He was road managing himself,
Okay, okay.
and so I would get all this just firsthand experience of what it is to deal with hotel check-in, rental car, flights, sound check. I mean, he was very, very efficient at sound checks. He was very, time was a premium to him. So sound checks, in other groups, and mine included, we get to sound check, and we play a little bit, we jam and whatnot. When I was in Danilo's band, we used to really have long sound checks, and we'd really explore things, and I loved it. And Gary's perspective was different, and it was very like, method. It was very, again, time being a premium. So we would, sound check would be quick. So it was a way to understand, like, well, what are the most important aspects here, to get comfortable quickly
Mm,
on a sound check. Um, and then also, musically, he was very, he would be very, uh, he would talk about what he thought, you needed to work on,
oh,
or,
okay.
or give positive feedback, of course, too, but also like, okay, here you're doing this and blah, blah, blah. So it felt like graduate school
Yeah,
in a way,
continuing off Berkeley. Yeah,
continuing, which was cool. And then just learning, yeah, just sort of living the life of a traveling musician, but with somebody who had done it for many years and who could articulate so many of the dynamics that you encounter when
yeah.
you're on the road. So it was, I learned a lot,
Mm.
learned a lot.
How do you stay fresh on the road, by the way? Like that you know, because you're a lot out there, and you know, many guys do meditation, or you know, how do you
Yeah.
stay healthy? I mean,
I mean, especially now, I place a premium on rest. I do meditate. In a
oh,
perfect
okay.
world, it would be more consistent than it is right now, but But yeah, I meditate and I try to rest and I try to get some exercise,
Okay,
all
that's very cool.
all around the goal of being ready when it's time to play, to be in tip top shape, considering all the factors at play. So so it's not like I exercise every single day on the road. You know, it just
Yeah,
really
that's
depends
it.
on how much time I have. But everything I'm doing is gearing myself towards the performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely not out at the disco until 6 a.m.
Sure. Donny, not to take more of your time, like what's still on the schedule for you, like the upcoming half a year? I mean, obviously I saw you're gonna tour the record in the States a little. Are you coming to Europe like for a more extensive tour next year, like
Well, I
2024?
was let's see. I was in Europe in July.
Oh shit.
I was in Europe in May, touring the record before it came out. Then we did a handful of dates in July. So what's coming up is next week is the West Coast of the United States and Canada,
How beautiful.
and then I'm home for October, and then November I'm going to do the Black Star Symphony in Tel Aviv,
Oh wow, man.
which is
Okay.
a new project. Yeah, we started it last year. We did a couple nights in Charlotte,
Yeah, I saw that.
North Carolina.
What's the idea there? You came up with the idea. I mean, what's the story behind that one,
Yeah,
actually?
it was really Jules Buckley and I, um, and the idea was using Black Star as a point of departure to
Okay.
reimagine this music for 75-piece orchestra,
Wow.
but not in a way where the orchestra is playing whole notes behind, you know, behind the rest of us, but the orchestra is really, um, really integrated into the music and into what we're playing.
Mm.
So that was the aesthetic, you know, that we put forward, and um, it's you know my band. We have three singers um, and 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 orchestra.
That's amazing.
So it was really exciting. A lot of work went into it. You know, some amazing orchestrators, arrangers work on it with me. You know, Maria Schneider, Jules Buckley, who I mentioned, Tim Davies, um, Vince Mendoza,
Oh wow.
and Tony Visconti. You know,
Wow.
who produced Black Star, Michael Dudley, who's a young, you know, wonderful talent, and Jamshid Sharifi, who I went to college with, who's an amazing.
Mm.
They're all amazing. So really happy with how it turned out. And so yes, we'll play in Tel Aviv in early November, and then we're going to go from there to Europe and play a run of gigs in mostly in Spain, also the
Okay.
Netherlands with my band. So that'll be back to quartet, and then
Mm.
early next year there's more Black Star Symphony in
Wow.
Seattle and Portland on the
Wow.
West Coast. Then I'm going to do a tour, another tour with my band. Oh no, I'm forgetting. In December we're going to play a few gigs in the Midwest,
Wow.
Chicago and Cincinnati
Beautiful.
in December. So
A
in
lot.
essence, it's these two projects, yeah, are going to keep going, and
That's
I've written some new music. I want to record, um, trying to find another time to record, and so that's also on the
Ooh.
horizon. I still have a little more to organize for that, but that's something that I'm looking towards also.
Wow. Amazing. Ooh. Are you gonna? Do you have plans to release the Black Star Symphony project, or I mean, or to record it in studio,
Um,
or
I don't
not
have
yet?
plans to record it right now.
Okay.
The initial idea was really to have it be a live experience,
Okay.
and you know, hard to imagine recording that music without David singing.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, was my first thought, but you know, let's see. Once we're a dozen gigs into this, you know, maybe
Let's see.
I'll feel
Yeah.
differently. I'm not rushing that part of it. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think
yeah.
for me,
Super man.
it's more the live experience because it's a record that was never really performed live. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
well, obviously never by David, but um, anyway, the music is so profound, and to present it in this way with this on this level of
Yeah, it's
grandeur is really
totally.
exciting.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Wow. Sir, I will let you go that you
Ah,
go get some rest. So you made it.
such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for
Thank you
taking
for
the
the
time.
conversation. Of
Appreciate it.
course.
And you know.
Yeah, my pleasure.